welcome to Incoherent Thoughts, episode 26. With your weekly hosts, sometimes I guess. With your weekly hosts,
Me.
Gabriel Bedney and Bradley McQuarrie.
Yeah, we really need a new intro. It's getting kind of stale.
What do you mean?
It's the same thing every week.
Well, that's...
We can do better than that.
Okay. Tell me, what should we do, Brad?
We could use different words to say the same thing.
Okay.
That's
So
exciting.
you want me to use a thesaurus and just change out every word?
Yeah.
Alright, we'll try and do that next week, Brad.
It's fresh,
Is that what it is? Is it actually
Yes.
fresh? It's the exact same thing, just different words.
It's pretty fresh,
Are we talking
I
like fresh from the dairy farm milk? Or are we talking like some vegetables in the food section at your local grocery? Fresh.
Nah, right off the teat.
Right out the tea. All right. Well, if it's that funky fresh, we'll have to consider it then.
Mm.
How has your 2 weeks been, Brad?
It's been so relaxing, no responsibilities like podcasts and stuff.
Isn't the reason you had to miss the podcast due to prior responsibilities?
It may have been, but
So I'm not sure how valid that statement was, Brad.
it's in the middle.
Alright. Fair enough. But so you didn't do anything? You just enjoyed your 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was great.
Alright.
I just sat outside, and then I sat
If,
inside.
not much happened, then we'll go ahead and jump on to the next part. So, we both watched a horror movie named The Babadook. And last week, I touched on it a fair amount. But now that we've both watched it, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about it a bit. So, since we've already heard my impressions on the movie, let's hear some of yours.
Well, first things first, it's not a horror movie.
Okay.
That should be pretty blatant, it's not. What can I say? It wasn't a bad movie. Kind of. The horror was pretty bad. I liked the stuff that led up to the horror. Like, there's some creepy aspects. They're fine. I liked the book. The book was cool. But then the second half of it, like, the horror aspects were just, they felt really cliche to me, and I didn't really care for it at that sense. But the other story, I guess you could say, the one about the family breaking down and the woman's issues with the loss of her husband and stuff around that was more interesting. Although I still didn't really care for it because that's not why I came to the movie.
All right. Fair points, I suppose. I guess we'll just go ahead and say that we will spoil everything on the movie this time. Last week I kind of held off on that, but this week I think we'll go a bit more in depth. So, I really enjoyed the movie. Not so much because it was a horror movie, but just because I thought it was a very well put together movie. I think the storytelling, the acting, and the writing were phenomenal in the movie. And although it wasn't, I agree with you in a sense that it wasn't like the forefront of its thought was being a horror movie, or it wasn't trying super hard to be the best horror movie ever, right? It was trying to make its own movie. And I thought it made its own movie extremely well. And I see your point in that it's not the scariest movie, and a lot of the scary parts are pretty cliche. Um, but I don't think that's really what the director was looking for in the movie. They weren't looking for the scariest horror movie, or you know a new shift in horror movie direction or something like that. But they were rather looking for a great movie that, through horror aspects and storytelling devices, increased the meaning and style that they wanted to portray this woman's deterioration into, in almost insanity. Well, no, pretty much insanity. Um, so I don't know. I really enjoyed it myself,
Hmm.
but I can understand if you were looking for, a super scary horror movie, that it could be disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, it's kind of part of the reason I was saying that was just how I ended up watching it, because I had to watch it at minimum volume, and I couldn't really hear what they were saying or much around the end, so it kind of killed the immersion.
Ah, I see. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie. It's not the most it's not the most creative in any regard. There's nothing particularly, like the whole, book or a piece or an article of clothing, or like some object is causing a haunting in your life thing, isn't particularly original, right? Other people have done it before. Um, but just the way they produced and directed the movie, I thought was really really excellent. Um, I thought the mother and the child were terrific actors. In fact, for a child actor, I thought that the kid was actually really great. Um, I mean, there wasn't too much writing to the movie, but a lot of it did lend a lot to the nuances of, like, the mother's exhaustion, slowly go deteriorating. The her sister's, like, frustration with her. A lot of the dialogue was well written in that sense, and so was the acting, and just scene direction and plot progression overall. I really enjoyed it. Um, and I think everything in the movie kind of went towards the metaphor of, the Babadook being this insurmountable issue of, she couldn't deal with her husband's passing, and every time it was her son's birthday, she basically broke down, and finally she was just so exhausted from having to raise her child and not having any breaks and not sleeping, that it started to physically manifest itself in her life as almost a haunting, and like a physical haunting of her and things of that nature. And so I enjoyed it. I mean, it was quite a literal metaphor. It's pretty obvious if you're looking for anything of that nature at all. But I think, like, the movie was very simple, but it was just so well put together that I thought it was good. I thought it was really great, actually. So I gave it like a 9 or 9.5 out of 10.
I see.
But I take it that you didn't enjoy the minimal aspects and the lack of innovative or interesting horror.
No, I didn't.
Do you think?
To
Do
be
you think
honest.
if you had watched the movie on a different premise, um, or your own separate premise, not the movie premise, obviously, on your own separate premise of what the movie was going to be, you would have enjoyed it more, or do you think that the movie just wasn't for you?
I just think it wasn't for me. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm all for metaphors and stuff, but it's like you don't just throw in shitty horror. It just wrecks it.
Hmm.
Like, okay, yeah, like it wasn't the worst horror ever, but like I hate cliches in horrors.
You see, to be honest, I thought that the cliches were done well enough that I didn't really mind them at any given point, and it didn't really draw me out of the immersion of the movie. I can see if like you were looking to be scared, why you would be looking for that type of thing. But because I was so engrossed in the story and what would happen to the characters, I wasn't so much thinking about the horror movie aspects and cliches that were going on. So for me, like maybe if I had gone into it looking for a really scary movie, maybe I would have thought of that more. But um, I
No,
I
I
was
gotcha.
I was drawn into the other aspects of the film in a way that, to me, that was all masked and kind of um, it just blended together into the overall film, and I didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, if I watched it in a different environment, even it might have changed my opinion. But what can you do?
So what do you rate it? And you can be honest, my feelings won't be hurt.
Hmm. Let's see. I'd give it a 7.
7 out of 10. It's
Yeah,
still pretty good.
that's just, in my opinion, that's average.
That's not average. Average is 5.
To me, 5 is shit. If that's just how I
How
see
can
it.
there be 5 ratings that are shit and 3 ratings that are good?
I think it's just based on my opinion of how I've seen games been rated. Like I would never like I'd see like a 5 rating on a game. I'd be like, there must be some serious flaws with that game. It's like I'm not even gonna bother
I
if I'm
hate
just like
modern rating
glancing at it.
systems. They don't make any fucking sense. It's like nothing is ever below a 5 because everyone just assumes a 5 and below is bad. It's like, to me,
Yeah,
an average game is 5 because 5 is the median number. It's the average number. 10 is
that's
like
how
a
it should be.
masterpiece. 7 is like, that's a pretty good game. 8 is like, wow, that's a great game. 9 is like, wow, holy shit, this is a fucking amazing game. You know? Like, if I often discuss this with like Jitsia or a few other friends, I guess too. But like when you rank only in the last 4 digits, then those rankings don't mean anything. If you want to rank things out of 4, then use a 4-star rating. But then you have to like think like, well, is this a 3 or 2? Like it puts a lot more importance on the number, right? But when all you do is like say everything is okay and you just give it a 7, like the rating is
Yeah,
meaningless.
no, I gotcha. I think I'd probably just rank it out of 5 then. Give it a 3 out of 5.
Three
Maybe
out of
three and a
five.
half actually,
Okay,
around there. So maybe the 7 wasn't too accurate, but you get the idea.
gotcha. Um, yeah, I don't know. Ratings really frustrate me nowadays, especially with with community averages. Those don't make any sense. And then, especially gaming reviewers, can't, like, Jesus fucking Christ, if you can ever trust one of their reviews. It just doesn't make, like, there's no consistency except unless it's a relatively unknown game, then sometimes they'll give it a more truthful review. But, like, I don't understand why people are so afraid to, like, actually rank out of their entire ranking system. Like a 7 or a 70 or a 3 is good. That's a really good one. Like, above that is great. So, I don't know. I guess at this point I'm just saying what I've already said, but it's frustrating to me because it, the rankings lose their meaning when you don't use the full rank, all of your rankings.
You have a point.
So, we also talked about this the other day, but it seems our philosophies on horror movies, on why we watch horror movies, are fundamentally different. So for me personally, when I watch a horror movie, it's not necessarily to be scared, inherently. Well, it doesn't even make any sense there. I don't necessarily need the movie to scare the living shit out of me. Um, Obviously, if you're watching a horror movie, it is so that it's scary. But to me, a horror movie doesn't need to be the scariest movie ever for it to be a great horror movie. Because when I watch a movie, it's for a great movie, not a great, scare. And I think there's like a big divide among a lot of horror fans, I guess. Like if you're a horror fan, typically like it's when you want to be like scared shitless by a movie. While if you're like a movie fan, maybe you want a movie out of your horror movies, right? Not just like a scare fest. So,
Mm.
what do you think? And where does your like of horror movies align?
I mean, I'm certainly not against having like a good story with it. It's just it's got to scare me. It's got to be like at least creepy. It's got to be like dreadful, or it's got to scare me. It has to be one of those. Otherwise, I just don't know why I'm watching it.
Mm,
Then it's just more dark, I guess.
that's fair enough.
Uh,
So, but like, how scary does it have to be? Because clearly, like, you didn't particularly find the Babadook scary enough, and I thought there were a few like tension-filled moments. I don't know if maybe like you were those were outweighed
uh,
by like the cliches in your mind, but I thought there were a few like nervous moments in that movie.
er, early on, or not too early on in the movie, but like maybe early-ish on. I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say. What they were doing, like the kind of like the creepy things, like with the book coming back and like stuff like that. Like I liked those,
Mm,
but then it's like when like the Babadook got like more up in her face about it, it just didn't do anything for me.
gotcha. So give me some examples of some of your favorite horror movies then. You don't have to give them in any particular order. Just some movies that jump to your mind when you think of a horror movie that you enjoyed.
I like the first 80% of Insidious.
Right. And so, what? Why did you? I haven't seen that movie, so you have to explain what you enjoyed in the first 80% of Insidious.
It was creepy, and at some points it was actually kind of scary to me. But then we get into like this whole like whoa, 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 what are we doing? Why are we going in this direction? Kind of shit for the last 20%.
Okay.
So yeah, didn't need that. Although there was one thing that I did find creepy at the end, which was good. But besides that, it wasn't what I wanted.
So the first 80% was just you liked it because it was genuinely scary, or because it was an interesting plot and it was scary. Like what? Why pick that
I
movie up?
didn't give two shits about the plot.
Okay. So
Something was happening. That's good enough.
so you're more aligned with just I need to be scared if I'm watching a horror movie than not necessarily.
I mean, like saying, I wouldn't mind it if it was interesting to me. It's just I can't think of any that were interesting.
All right. So like a few of my favorite horror movies would be like um, The Shining, Aliens, Santa Sangre, which is kind of an odd horror movie to put up, but that. Uh, what else would I put up there? Hmm. I don't know, but like more movies with a more like central, like they're more movies than like horror movies, like that.
Yeah.
So I guess like I'm more of a movie fan than a horror fan. Although I really love horror movies, but I just feel like the genre often gets dumbed down because of what people want out of it, out of kind of necessity.
Mm.
Which is I think it's kind of a shame. Like it's great, like if you just want a genre that will scare you, a lot of horror movies can do that, but I feel like the genre gets dumbed down because of that, like just to scare you, and then instead of like being an interesting movie, it's just like a grand attempt at scaring you.
Yeah.
So, oh, I also like. Let's see. I like the Evil Dead. Halloween is pretty good. The first Freddy Krueger is not bad. There's some.
Mhm.
We're getting like some. Oh well. But I do really enjoy horror movies, but I feel like it's a really underutilized genre. Unlike thrillers,
Haha.
for anyone, thrillers are my favorite genre. So I think it's like it's taking horror movies, making them a little less scare centric, and then making them more interesting plot wise, and more well produced. I love thrillers. But all right, any other horror movies you want to throw out there that you enjoy, or any other last thoughts on horror movies in general?
Uh, I guess I got one movie and one thing to say. So, movie, I like The Conjuring.
All right.
It's a new movie. Just like it felt good to me. Although the end was kind of dumb. I don't know if there's any end to horror movies that I like.
All right.
Uh, one thing to say. So I was just thinking about like with the Babadook. It was like how it really just wasn't scary to me after they revealed like what it is, like what they see it as.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about the comparisons between horror movies where you can like clearly see what the monster is compared to things where you can't.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. I think. Well, I think. So, oh, what do you have to say about that first? Let's go there.
I was just thinking about like how I couldn't really think of any horror movies where I was like genuinely really scared of the monster. Like once you could actually see it,
Mm-hmm.
like with the exceptions of maybe when it's like a person, because people can be scary, I guess. But you know when it's clearly not a person, like some type of monster. So yeah. So like in movies where like you don't see it the monster, like you don't see the demon or the spirit or something, and it's left more up to your imagination. I think that that can be scarier.
That's interesting. I think I agree with that, especially the part about being human. And I think I know I can guess at why that's true. So I think with a monster, you inherently will think that it will do something evil, right? And like you're not gonna be surprised when like the ghost kills someone or like the the monster kills someone, right? But with a human,
Hmm.
oftentimes with a human, there's a lot of build up to their action, to the like murder or something, right? Um, and you can also like there's something really scary about a human because it's a lot more realistic. Like that could happen to you, you know. So the example that jumps to my mind would be like with The Shining. And I don't want to spoil The Shining for you, but well, I guess you've it's probably been spoiled somehow for you, but
I've seen it through parodies. It's
right.
okay.
So with The Shining, a lot of the movie's scariness comes from this constant dread of you knowing what's going to happen. Like it keeps building and building. You're like, oh my god, something horrible's gonna happen. When is it gonna happen? Oh my god, he's going crazy. And it just keeps building and building, and this, like the music and like the environment and like setting just keeps building up this pit of dread in your stomach, and you're just like, when's it gonna happen? And it's almost and it just creates this sense of suspense in you that's like a really mounting, like I said, dread of watching this person, you know, go into madness and then eventually try and hurt people. So I think that's at least my experience there. And I think a great horror movie like with a monster like you that you inherently think that they'll um, want to harm you, right? So you have to kind of hide the monster and like have him attack in like moments where you don't expect it because that's where the suspense in a monster comes, because a monster can kind of attack you at any time with like, because usually they're stronger than you or they have some sort of advantage on you, right? So that's the scary
Mm.
part, is that like a monster attack could happen at any time, but like a human attack kind of is like kind of this building horror of like, oh my god, this guy's going like insane, he's gonna go kill this person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Does that make any sense?
No, I think it does. I gotcha.
So what do you prefer then? Do you prefer monster movies or like human slasher flicks, or I don't know.
Hmm.
I guess human slasher flicks kind of like makes it too specific, but just like what type of horror, what villain is your favorite kind of horror villain?
I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter what they're facing. It has to be like really creepy. I don't like, if it scares me, that's great. But if a movie's really creepy to me and even dreadful, then that's what I want out of it.
Mm. All right. Well, congrats on being a lesser horror fan.
Thanks.
Anyways, so hopping on over to our next topic. I thought it'd be interesting to check back in with our good old buddies, the Straw Hat Pirates.
Oh.
So, in One Piece, we're finally getting to some like fighting and stuff, and the Dressrosa arc is kind of winding down. It's approaching the climax, and Luffy finally has a new ability revealed in his Gear 4, and so finally it appears as though he can actually fight Doflamingo. As in the last few chapters, it seemed that Doflamingo has had a definitive upper hand. So what I wanted to ask is not, the obvious, do you think Luffy can beat Doflamingo, but what do you think of Luffy's new power, Brad?
Seems broken as hell.
So for those who don't know, the power is basically he inflates himself and hardens his body with hockey so that he is both constantly guarded by hockey, but also constantly guarded in a state of like inflation, like where he is also very elastic, so he can take punches and it kind of absorbs it, but also he is hardened by hockey at the same time. So it's kind of like an ultimate defense, but at the exact same time, it also boosts his physical abilities, as he's come up with some crazy new ways to use his elasticity to increase his strength. So, do you think the first thing I thought when I saw Red was that it looks pretty lame. I gotta be honest, it looks kind of stupid. What it?
Yeah, he does. He really fucking does. Kind of looks like Nightmare Luffy, but yeah, I don't like how he looks.
He just kind of looks like kind of like a fat gorilla, or like just I don't know. He just looks goofy and like inflated. Which I guess Luffy's not supposed to look super serious, but when it's like his strongest form, you kind of expect something serious out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just looks kind of odd.
No, he does. He does.
It does seem to be pretty fucking strong. He's beaten Doflamingo's ass.
Yeah, he didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, Doflamingo got knocked out. I don't know. Do you think it's a cool power, or do you think it's kind of whatever and just kind of a build on what he already has? Because with Gear 2 and Gear 3, when I first read those, I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. Because like those are both kind of like really dramatic and singular increases to his power, like the ability to like grow a part of his body to like monstrous sizes, or to like quadruple his speed are pretty dramatic, right? But this is more of just like, I don't know. It doesn't really feel the same for some reason as a power upgrade.
Yeah. I don't know. I like his moves. They're cool. I like how he like charges up his fist into his arm,
Yeah.
and he has the fucking like the python.
But yeah, he can apparently change the trajectory of his elastic punches mid trajectory or mid flight. So, I don't know. Seems like, I don't know. I hopefully like Doflamingo has something else up his sleeve to make the fight more interesting than Luffy just beats his ass. Although that would be pretty sweet if Luffy could just beat Doflamingo's ass, but it'd be kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, he's got to have one thing left.
Yeah. No, should be interesting though. If Luffy is so strong that like he can easily handle Doflamingo, even I mean, granted they're both injured, so I don't know how that factors into it. But if Luffy can fight Doflamingo on pretty even grounds, can he fight Big Mom and other stuff like that? Da-da-da.
Well, I mean,
I wonder if Big Mom
I
is
don't know
actually
about
like
that.
combat savvy. For her
Yeah.
abilities don't actually seem. Well, actually, do we know her abilities?
No, we just know that she has. I don't know. She's a cannibal. That's all we know.
Yeah, I guess we don't actually know much about her. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like she would be combat savvy, but I suppose she must be.
Yeah, she's a Yonko.
I don't know. That'll be interesting. I hope that that's the next arc, and I hope it's not just like it gets cheesed by her daughter, just like saying, "Oh, let Luffy go."
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, maybe they team up and go after Kaido or some shit. Who knows?
After Kaido. That'd be interesting. So he teams up with Law, takes down Doflamingo, teams up with Big Mom, takes down Kaido.
I mean, they say throughout the series that one of his best traits is his ability to make friends with people or allies.
That's true. That's true. The power of the D.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Well, I just wanted to touch on that really quick because I thought it was finally an interesting development in One Piece worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So, I have a few things I've been watching and reading that I want to give a quick rundown on. So I started reading Inuyasha, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yep.
And I enjoy it so far. I'm about 50 chapters in. I think there's 500 chapters. And I'm liking it. It's a lot more mature than the anime. The anime, I think, was more aimed for kids. So, it can be pretty graphic. Like, there are actual violent deaths. There's random nudity. Well, not random, appropriate nudity, I suppose.
All right.
And I don't know. The manga just seems much more mature than I thought it was. Would be, and the plot's pretty interesting. I'd always had a mild interest in Inuyasha, but I don't know, some sort of preconceived bias against it for some reason. I don't know why. I just was never interested in checking it out. I think someone just told me it was bad once, so I just wasn't interested. But I'm reading it now, and it's pretty good. So far, it's just kind of like a classic, like, impossible quest that they've got to go complete that will take a long time. So, like, this jewel shattered into, like, 100 pieces or some shit, so they gotta go collect all the fragments. And the jewel's important because it, like, powers up yokai really impressively. But the main character, Inuyasha, is actually a half yokai, half human. and if he has it, then he can become full yokai or full human. So it's really important that he can get it. So that's the kind of like premise so far, and no, it's being done pretty well for what I've read so far. The action's pretty interesting. They keep introducing characters at a pretty cool rate, and all the characters have been pretty interesting so far.
Hmm.
So I'm enjoying it. Um, that's pretty much all I had to say so far. I'll give another update when I'm further into the series, I guess.
Looking forward to it.
And then the other thing I've been watching is Daredevil, which I'm becoming more and more disappointed with.
Uh,
um, at first, I was really enjoying the series. I think I just wanted to veg out my mind and not really think about something, and I was enjoying it. But the more and more I get into the show, the more I notice the inherent flaws with how they made the show. Um, First off, I will say I do really enjoy the plot progression and like the storytelling of the show, or just the overall story, I guess, and concept of the show. But then again, all of that was already kind of created for them, so I don't know how much that's complimenting the show or the original comic creators. But the issues with this show are pretty obvious once you've watched any number of episodes, and which surprises me because it's actually like the number one watched Netflix original show,
oh.
like more than House of Cards, which everyone loved. So it's kind of odd to me, but whatever.
Hmm.
So the major issues with the show is primarily the acting by some of the main cast is just horrible. Um,
Uh,
the main, I'd say the worst two are the protagonist's best friend, Foggy. He's fucking horrible at acting. Um, he just like, it's kind of like the lovable stooge guy, but he like delivers like these stupid fucking one-liner jokes all the time, and it's just like, oh my god, it's so annoying. Like he just overplays all of his jokes so much that like whenever he does it, I'm just like, why? Like no one does that in real life. This is not like stop that. This isn't a sitcom. I don't know. It just feels so sitcom-y, his delivery.
uh,
Um,
that does sound annoying.
so I don't enjoy that. The main protagonist isn't anything special. I wouldn't say he's bad, but he's not anything special either. The villain, who is Kingpin for this season, although they haven't even called him Kingpin yet, but whatever. He's obviously Kingpin. Um, I don't. Okay. The guy is a good actor because I've seen him on Law and Order CI, which is Criminal Intent, and he's a good actor. But in this fucking show, he has one of the most infuriating acting dialects I have ever had to listen to. He does this thing where he like is gasping for air and like struggling to say every word, and it's just like like so fucking annoying to listen to. And he even does it when he like says other languages. So sometimes he has to speak Mandarin. He's like, I don't know how to like imitate Chinese, but like it's just like so fucking annoying to listen to him trying to speak in that horrible, horrible fake dialect, and I just can't deal with it. Also, his acting just isn't that great in this show. I don't know what it is about what they're asking of him, but like sometimes he just like wakes up in the middle of the night like he had a nightmare. And if I get if like he's not trying to react much because like he's a strong villainous character. But if you're a strong villainous character, then show that. Don't go like halfway where you like look like disturbed and like and sweating and stuff like you just had a nightmare, but like emotionless and like bored at the same time. Like, come on. I don't know. Like the acting is there's a lot of the actors that are kind of average or below average. I will say like the reporter, the black guy, he's good. And Madame Gao, who's just this like Asian drug lady, is also good. And she's kind of a important character, so that's worth mentioning, I guess. And they're good, but the main cast is like the main cast is like, ugh, pretty average or mediocre at best. Also, the writing is kind of like, come on, you guys couldn't get any better writers on this show. It's just like there's nothing impressive. A lot of the writing is cliche or trite. The jokes are like really fucking lame a lot of the time. It's just like
So, why do you watch this show then?
because I enjoyed it at first. To
Mm.
be honest, like the last episode I watched, I was like, I don't really want to watch this. I only have 2 episodes of the series left, so I don't know. I might just finish it, but there are a lot of issues with it, and everyone who I see like talk about it like fucking loves the series. And I'm just like, really? I don't know. Sometimes I think about it too much, but like they're so obvious to me that I don't understand how anyone can like look past them. Like when acting, like for me, if like acting is bad or like the script is trite and like just annoyingly simple, like that bothers me. I don't know why, like, but oftentimes I just, I can't get past that. Like, I don't care how interesting the plot to your story is. If you can't deliver it well, then it doesn't really matter. So, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents, I guess. You been watching anything?
Just Game of Thrones.
All right. We'll talk about that on a future episode because that's quite the topic to handle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess we'll just finish up with some good old fashioned League of Legends. So first, I'll just give like a quick rundown. Only 2 competitive things happened in the last week since I talked, which is just SKT versus CJ. Wait, did I actually talk about that one on the last episode? I think I did. Yes.
Alright.
So, I guess the only thing that really happened was LPL Finals, where EDG won very narrowly over LDG, which is cool, because it looks like EDG was completely dominant, and this kind of makes it more high stakes at MSI, because they don't look as superbly dominant as they did during the season. LDG was really close to like beating them out. It was a 3-2 series. So now, whether that means that the whole league was actually just playing shitty the entire time and everyone's level of play just increased dramatically, which I think did happen to a degree. It seemed like a lot of players were clutching it through the playoffs. But I don't know if like it's so much that, or was EDG's level of play really not that high the whole time, and people just like didn't care enough to go ahead. Like, so I don't know. It kind of raises some questions about how close is the top team in China to a TSM. So I think it makes the storyline a bit more interesting for MSI at least.
Hmm.
And then I don't remember if I talked about SKT versus CJ, but that series was fucking amazing. And if you haven't watched it, I really suggest you go watch it. It was some hype shit. It went all the way to Game 5, and Game 4 was like one of the craziest adrenaline, heart pumping games I've ever watched. And it was so fucking back and forth that, like, I don't know, I was upset that I had no one to talk to about it, so I actually went to the Reddit live update thread and it was just like spamming comments like, "What the fuck is happening?" So that series was crazy. If you want if you want an action packed game that was just like super exciting and amazing to watch from just an enjoyment standpoint, not necessarily a high level competitive aspect, then I highly suggest Game 4 of SKT versus CJ. Intis. Alright, so that's pretty much it with competitive. We can hop on to some patch notes.
Okay.
So, patch 5.8 will be dropping, Brad.
Oh boy.
Are you excited?
No.
Why not?
I don't know what to think of this new Rise.
Yeah, New Rise is weird as fuck.
Did you read how his passive works?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Like, what the fuck does that mean? So it's like every time you cast a spell, it cuts like 4 seconds off the cooldown of other ones. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but only while you're in your arcane, like only once your passive is activated.
Yeah, I know. Which, to be fair, is pretty short duration early.
Yeah. So
3
for
seconds.
those who don't know, Rise got reworked. Um, they changed some of his base stats. It looks like they just gave him. They nerfed some of his early regen, gave him better late game mana regen, and then nerfed his armor growth stat. So that means that they want to keep his early laning in check a bit. I guess I don't know why they nerfed his armor growth stat. Then that's kind of odd.
Yeah. It's a fair bit, too.
I guess they just don't want. Oh, it's probably because they don't want him to be as tanky late game since he's gonna have this shield, which is a lot of effective health, right?
Mm.
Alright, so I'll just read his passive out because it's weird as shit, right? So, casting a spell grants a stack of arcane mastery for 12 seconds. At 5 stacks, Rise becomes supercharged for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, increasing with ranks. Gaining a shield that blocks 20 plus 5 per level, plus 8% of his maximum mana damage. That blocks all that damage, and causing his spellcast to reduce the cooldown of his other spells by Overload's cooldown to a minimum of 0.25 seconds. And Overload's cooldown is 4 seconds at every rank. Not including senior, I guess.
Mm.
So basically, it means that like Rise has like high moments of power that you kind of have to stack up. But you can't have this built up and then like run around and then use it. You have to be like in combat or in lane for this to like proc. So it's pretty much a laning all-in tool, and like a team fighting tool, right? It's not going to really be a super roaming tool. His Q is now a skill shot, which is weird as fuck. That takes away a lot of his lane bullying potential, because the lane bullying potential was that he just walks up, Qs you, always hits you, guaranteed damage, pretty much always beats you in a short trade and then just walks away, right? So now they just buffed um, pretty much the damage on everything except for the mana ratio, and then they made it a skill shot. So I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I
I think
I
it's
don't
a
know.
pretty huge nerf to his laning phase.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's probably better for team fighting, I guess. But
Just so weird.
yeah, I don't know why they changed it like that. Like what what made it so they needed to change this? Whatever.
Yeah. All
They
right.
pretty much just
And
nerfed his W across the board.
yeah, I guess they don't want it to be like a damage skill, just a straight up utility skill.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But they also didn't reduce the snare duration, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Utility, less damage.
Well, the snare. Well, yeah, I guess if you're saying it like skill into it, if you need more utility, you know. And then they buffed his E, I think, pretty significantly.
Hmm.
I don't know what the damage change is, or if there is any. But basically, they made it hit more times, and it always bounces back to the original target. So it's a guaranteed to hit the target twice. And it's now magic resistance reduction percentage and not a flat resistance reduction. So that's a pretty big buff to his E. Like, especially considering the magic resist can be shredded 3 times. Like, that's a lot of MR gone.
Yep. 36% late game.
Like, that's nothing to scoff at. If he fucking all-ins you with his passive up, and you get hit by his E 3 times, like, he's going to melt you, like, instantly. Like, he's gonna be able to throw out spells so quickly, and you'll just have, like, no MR, especially if you have a void, too. Like,
Hmm.
that's a lot of your MR gone.
Yep.
And then his ult now has scaling CDR passively, which is good because they took it off his Q. It's kind of odd though because you can't really build into any CDR items as easily because at late game it gives you 30%. And a lot of mana items give you CDR, so it's kind of awkward.
Yeah. That is awkward. Huh.
So you'll probably be overly capped on CDR all the time. Other than that, it's pretty much the same ability, uh, but it increases your passive's duration, and they kind of made it the cooldown on it longer and the duration less, just so like it doesn't become too overwhelming with your passive, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, they made it shorter later, but yeah, the cooldown.
Oh, that's true. I guess because you can't get it down forcibly.
Hmm.
I guess they don't want it to be abused in lane, but like in team fighting later when you need it, they want it to be readily available. Because you can't just spam your spells to get your ult back up now. Alright, so that's the Rise update. I think. I don't know, it's really hard to judge. I think it's a nerf to his laning phase, but I think he'll be even more of a monster late game. Like,
Hmm.
if you go off with that passive in your ult in a clutch situation, like if they're all grouped up and you get just to spam your E and Q and they're all just clumped up, you're gonna shred all of their MR and just like melt their entire team. Like it's going to be disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be really interesting to see the new Q.
Yeah,
But
confusing.
just one quick thing. Are you sure you can't just spam to get his ult back up? Because I thought that's what his passive was saying.
Mm,
Because you just have to cast the spell to get a stack. You don't have to hit anything. And then like once you get your mode up, you can just spam.
well, yeah, well, but you have to pop your actual passive to reduce the cooldown. Like before, if you
Yeah.
just use a spell, it would reduce the cooldown to go. Yeah, so I guess you can technically reduce. Um,
The ult's cooldown.
yeah. But it only does it by a flat 4 seconds each time you pop your passive. I think.
Yeah. Unless you have CDR, then it would be less. But I guess to the same effect.
So I don't know. It's still kind of like essentially doesn't really reduce the cooldown on it, or at least not that significant. I don't know. Is there a cooldown on his passive? I don't think there is, right?
Nah, it doesn't say there is.
I don't know. I don't think that like people will just be spamming abilities to reduce their old cooldown like they would before though. So I still think it's safe to say that's kind of a change in playstyle in that sense.
Hmm.
Um, they changed Bard a bit. I think it's pretty much a buff. Obviously, you get more EXP on your chimes after 5 minutes, which is always a buff because roaming around, like you need to be able to get EXP, but also crucially, it can help snowball your lane when you leave your AD carry to absorb EXP, and then you still can maintain uh, your own EXP. It gives your AD carry an EXP advantage. So being able to stay EXP or level capped off with everyone around you while your AD carry gains a lot of levels is really important. So it's a good buff. Um, Chime's not spawning in the enemy jungle. It's convenient, but I don't know if it's the smart thing to do because it does help you place wards in their jungle. A lot of the time, you when you roam, you look about like what chimes are out, um, and to try and like plan a route. So I don't know. It's convenient, but I don't know if it was necessary. They made Blitzcrank feel less shitty. That's pretty much that. Do you think the Mundo change is a big change
It'll help. I definitely think it will.
in like bully lands where he suffers?
Yep. I mean, like he can just stay in the lane and farm for longer, right? Because if you block all of his cleavers, like you're gonna fucking die. They do a lot of damage. And now, at least if he lands them successfully on the minion that he's trying to kill, he gets all his health back.
Sure. It is pretty annoying when you when you had to last hit with Q and you're just slowly losing health,
Yeah.
chipping yourself away.
Mm. Ooh. Graves change.
I think this
It's
is a
lovely.
pretty fucking stupid change. I don't know why. Like I would have understood if they changed this like a month, like 2 months ago, when we weren't in the tank meta. But like Graves suffers against tanks, so I don't know what the fuck. Like he doesn't do any damage to tanks. It like his whole kit is like I'm going to win by bursting you down because you're squishy, haha. But you don't really burst down tanks. He's not like the highest DPS champion. If you want DPS, you're gonna go a different AD carry, like Caitlyn, Jinx, Kog'Maw, Vayne, right? Graves. The whole thing about Graves is he's bursty with his cooldowns, so he's not really good in this meta. So I don't know why you nerf his range damage and then make it so that he has to get closer to these huge tanky guys who he's not going to damage anyways, just to be able to do the same amount of damage in a more dangerous position. I understand that that's what you want Graves to be as a champion, but if you're gonna do that, you don't need to nerf him to do that. In a meta, I mean, it's not like Graves is bad, but I just don't think that this nerf is appropriate in this meta. So I think it's odd. Jinx nerf, I think it's necessary. That shit's retarded when like you just get ulted point blank and you die from it because it's just this, you're like at a third health or you're at a quarter health and you're trying to dual Jinx. It's pretty fucking annoying. So I'm glad they did that. It makes basically it just makes it so if she ults you point blank, it doesn't shit on you as hard. Now like it encourages you to kind of like long distance ult to have the upgraded damage. That's good.
Yeah.
They buffed Kha'Zix. I think that's pretty risky because dude is always on the verge of being OP. I don't know if this is, I don't really play Kha'Zix much, but careful. Careful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but 20 heal amount really is not going to be the end of the world.
I suppose. Maybe I am exaggerating.
Yeah.
What do you think about Scion change?
Let me scroll down to it. Scion.
I think it basically just makes his landing a little bit worse. That's about it.
Let me see. So the ratio to max health. So talking about like the shield value
and damage.
Oh, and damage.
Well, they're both the same, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
Oh well, I don't know. It'll make his jungling weaker and his laning weaker early.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because that hurts his sustain. Because his W is his sustain.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So I mean, Sion's still strong. I don't think this will hurt him too much, but it might make him a little bit less seen.
It's the little things that chip away,
It's the little things.
Bullshit.
I think this will probably put him in the right spot though, like a fairly balanced. Like he was too strong for a while, and now they're kind of slowly bringing him down to scale. And with the E and Q change that they did a little bit ago, plus this, I think he'll probably be in an appropriate spot. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, to be fair, I don't really see or play much of them, but I don't think it's the worst thing. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Yasuo change.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't like. It doesn't seem like it's super shitty, but I guess if you're playing it in mid, it could be pretty hard.
Yeah, in mid you really don't move around that much. I mean, it's a pretty small little box area where you move around in, and especially when you don't have your E to build up your flow anymore, like it can take a while to bring your shield back up. So I don't know. This seems like a pretty big nerf to his laning phase overall. Like I get they buffed it by 40 the overall shield. So like if you have it up, it's a lot stronger of a trading tool. But that was really his whole gimmick to all laning is I have my shield up, I will take less damage if we trade, in a short trade because my shield won't deflect it obviously. So I don't know. Like his whole issue was his early game, not his late game. So I don't know about this one. That's pretty much it with champion balance. I have a few itemization changes though.
Yes, they do.
Why don't you give us the rundown on the Black Cleaver?
Well, it's actually black now, which is surprising. I don't know. Let's see. So, gives way more health, 10 less damage, 10% more CDR. shred lasts longer. I guess I forgot to mention there the flat 10 pen is gone as well, and you can stack it one more time. So 30% max shred instead of 25. And of course, we have the upgraded phage passive, which is dealing physical damage, grants movement speed for 2 seconds, and killing a unit receiving an assist on a champion. If there's any amount of shred, grants 60 movement speed for 2 seconds instead. Okay. Seems pretty strong. Seems pretty damn strong for the champions that utilize Black Cleaver already.
Yeah, I think certain champions that I think some of the strongest offenders will be like Wukong, Fiora. Who else? I had a fairly good list earlier. I'm trying to think who else.
People were saying that it'd be really good on Riven, but it's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, you can chase better, but 10 damage off and 10 flat pen off?
Yeah. You wouldn't want to rush it, for sure. But when people like, I don't know, Vi, who else? Maybe Master Yi, Garen. You know, people who auto attack a lot, but also love flat AD. You know, being kind of tankier and using abilities a lot as well. Will like this a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like your Darius would love it, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think this is gonna be over the top at first. I think it'll be too strong. And honestly, I'll be surprised if it's balanced. What about you?
I think it is a bit strong right now.
Yeah. I mean, the armor penetration is pretty significant because it's a lot less. Because a lot of the times you'd buy it just because you wanted Brutalizer to snowball your lane, and then you got Black Cleaver because you needed something for team fighting, maybe. But now, like, finishing off Black Cleaver is like a viable path. Like, you really want to finish off Black Cleaver now. It gives a lot of good stats on the upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So before, like, you were literally just upgrading it for, like, the passive, right? Everything else you already had. But now it's a big, like, there's a lot of stats and things that it gives you upon upgrade. So I think that's what makes it dangerous.
So very dangerous.
Everything builds out of recurve bow now.
Mm-hmm.
And recurve bow now does flat 10 physical damage on hit, which means it's not a complete garbage item to build now. So that's nice.
Yeah. Well,
basically, they just changed a lot of the heavy attack speed items to fit with that idea. Wit's End builds out of it. Still, same cost. Nothing really changed there. Actually, well, now Wit's End builds out of it. I think it built out of 2 daggers before, right?
yes, maybe. I really don't know.
Recurve bow, Devourer builds out of it. That makes sense. Runan's Hurricane obviously still builds out of it, but now they kind of buffed Runan's Hurricane a little bit. Now, your attacks plus the bolts deal just a flat 10 physical damage on hit, which is a nice buff to Runan's Hurricane. It might make it a more viable item because that damage can also crit, right? So flat 10 damage. A lot of people will say that that's not a lot, but late game that does add up to a fair amount of extra damage. Especially considering it halves your AD on your passive bolts anyways, right? So 10, so that's actually worth like 20 AD on your passive procs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty important. And then most important of all is they buff Blade of the Ruined King. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Some deity. Because it doesn't make any fucking sense that like you had to build Borg to deal with tanks, but you were fucking dying to Thor mill because you couldn't lifesteal enough because Blaze of the Ruined King doesn't give any fucking lifesteal. So now you're the passive off Blade of the Ruined King, which is like percent of their current health, I guess. You lifesteal your life still benefits from that damage as well. So it didn't make sense that all the damage you were building out of the item you weren't life stealing from. Like, what fucking sense does that make? So glad they fucking changed it. That's actually a really significant buff. And then they nerfed Righteous Glory because that item was too stupidly gold efficient.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That's the patch notes. Ash also got dropped on the PvE as a champion update, but we can talk about that next time. It's not a big deal.
Huh.
And but yeah, so that's this week's episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
It was a fun episode.
Yeah, we got to talk about spooky movies.
Exactly. Fun.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.